And that's the kind of stuff that we have to do. If you want to sell your products here in the country, you build either all of them here or a portion of to give Canadians jobs. We have to expand our trade deals with other nations so we're less reliant on the Americans. But when we expand those trade deals, we have to make sure we keep their workers in mind as well as ours. So we don't see what happened years ago when trade deals started popping up and everybody split and going to different countries that were cheaper to produce things. Carney doesn't care. Polyev certainly doesn't care about that stuff, because all they care about is lining their pockets, lining the pockets of the people that support them. And it's definitely not the working class.
Welcome to Activists Make History. My name is Peggy Nash. I've been a union activist, a feminist advocate, and for nearly a decade, a member of Parliament in Canada's House of Commons. I know what it's like to start from scratch, against the odds, in building a community campaign or running for political office. Our lives are hugely affected by political decisions, but for the underrepresented in political life, Canadian politics can seem like a secret society designed to shut them out. I'm here with a special series from Perspectives, a Canadian journal of political economy and social democracy, to lift the curtain on these electoral mysteries and show the underdogs how we can do it. In Activists Make History, I talk to activists, experts, political leaders, and those like me who've been there and done that, to show you can make real progressive change in how Canadian democracy functions so that we can win a better world through elected office. In January 2026, I invited candidates running to be the next leader of the federal NDP onto Activists Make History for conversations from the campaign trail. Rob Ashton is a trade unionist, longshoreman, and candidate running to be the next leader of the federal NDP. He spent more than 3 decades working on Canada's docks and in the labour movement, rising through the ranks of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. He's been a dock worker, business agent, vice president, and since 2016, president of the ILWU Canada, representing thousands of workers across British Columbia and Saskatchewan. After spending his career bargaining contracts, walking picket lines, and organizing collective action with fellow workers, he is running for leader to ensure the NDP remains the party of workers and everyday people. Rob Ashton, welcome to Activists Make History.
Thanks, Peggy. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. Now, your campaign seems to be focused on and resonating with working class Canadians across different sectors of the economy. Now, you're running to be NDP leader. If you were leader, how would you make sure that the party is not only speaking to, but organizing with, building with workers across the economy, whatever sector they're in, trades, offices, professional, precarious work? How would you treat the party differently and use the leadership differently than other candidates?
So a key part of it is having a good relationship with the Canadian Labour Congress. And I've expressed that view to the Congress as well as to other unions across the country. The other part of it is having the membership's voice heard through the EDAs. Because I think that's what we've lost along the way is we've stopped listening to the membership and we've taken over more of a top-down leadership style over the last few years. My union that I come from, we're a rank and file based union. Membership gives the leadership direction and the leadership does that direction. And that's what I want to bring us back to. I've been doing this all my life, this type of leadership skills, right? Leading a rank and file organization. And so that's what we're going to do is we're going to bring more people in. We're going to get into the workplaces and out of those boardrooms so that we can actually hear what people are talking about on the shop floors. When I say shop floors, I don't mean just in a warehouse or on a dock somewhere. I mean in lunchrooms, in office buildings, in hospitals, in schools. Because I think there's a discussion about when I talk about the working class, that what does the working class mean? And for me, the working class is everybody that does not hold the means of production, unless the workers hold that means of production. And I think that's the biggest difference between myself and the other candidates on that. But that's how we're going to do it. You know, I speak to everyday people about everyday struggles, and that's what's going to bring people back to the party.
You talk about workplaces and especially lunchrooms, and that is probably one of the only places that people do get a chance to talk when they're at work. Things are so tightly, the production is so tight in many places nowadays. But you also mentioned boardrooms. Now, speaking of boardrooms, there was a very famous speech given by our prime minister recently in Davos that got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And I think he'll agree that his point was Canadians do need to stand up to Donald Trump. But some people are a little uneasy with the vision he put forward and who's creating that vision, what sector of society is creating that vision. What kind of leadership would you offer if you were leader of the NDP right now in terms of the global situation, standing up to Donald Trump? Who would our allies be? How would you position the party?
Well, I think we know who helped write Carney's speech there in Davos. It definitely wasn't people from the working class. You just have to look at how he leads when he's here in the country. In his last budget, he cut 50,000 jobs from the PSAC alone. And so he's out of touch with reality, right? In today's day and age, when we're supposed to be building things here at home and growing our economy, he's cutting jobs that we need in this country. And he's doing it, he thinks he's doing it because he's standing up to Trump, but he's not. The way we stand up to Donald Trump, and the way I stand up to Donald Trump, would be quite simply is do what I've been doing my whole life and push back, be stronger than him. Because Canada is a stronger country than the United States.
What do you mean by that? How are we stronger? Militarily, we sure aren't.
No, but our soldiers, pound for pound, our military people are much better than theirs. I will put any Canadian soldier up against an American soldier any day of the week if I have.
Certainly much better than the ICE representation that we're seeing right now in Minneapolis.
But and see that goes to why we're better. And when I say that, I'm very careful with how I say that, because there is some parties in our political system that would like to end up there. And we have to be very careful with that. But in dealing with Trump directly, you don't just cave. If we can't get a deal, I like to call it NAFTA myself, but if we can't get a North American free trade deal again, that works for Canadians, that works for our country, then we don't have a deal at all. Because there was a time that this country was strong, proud, stood on our own feet before free trade deals came into place. And we can get back there by bringing jobs back to this country. You want to sell stuff here, then you build it here. Like the Chinese EVs that are coming in, that was a good deal for the farmers in this country, and our farmers were getting beat up pretty bad with the tariffs on canola prices. But to allow a sector to be inundated with vehicles, but there's no deal where they're going to be built here, that's a shame, right? So he's forgotten about the working class, the people that are losing their jobs. And so if you want to come into this country, build a business, and you need help from the Canadian government, fine, we'll help you. But there'll be strings attached to the money that we give you if we need to. Strings attached to tie that money to jobs and creation of more jobs. And it works because you don't have to look too far out down the road here, because I'm in Ottawa right now. But if you look to Nova Scotia, in 2011, the provincial NDP government made a deal with the feds and urban shipyards to build the vessels, the Coast Guard vessels and the Navy vessels there. But they tied the money to jobs and job creation. So in 2011, they had about 300 jobs there. And I was just there about a month back. And now they have around 3,000 direct jobs. 2,500 of them approximately are represented by Unifor. There's about another 10,000 indirect jobs just on that one shipyard alone. And that's the kind of stuff that we have to do. If you want to sell your products here in the country, you build either all of them here or a portion of to give Canadians jobs. We have to expand our trade deals with other nations so we're less reliant on the Americans. But when we expand those trade deals, we have to make sure we keep their workers in mind as well as ours. So we don't see what happened years ago when trade deals started popping up and everybody splitting and go into different countries that were cheaper to produce things. Carney doesn't care. Polyev certainly doesn't care about that stuff, because all they care about is lining their pockets and lining the pockets of the people that support them. And it's definitely not the working class.
Mm-hmm. In the auto policy that was recently announced, there was the statement made by the government that to sell here, you need to build here, but it's not been the case so far. And the Chinese deal is an example of that. So we'll see. The electric vehicle subsidy is supposed to be for Canadian-made vehicles under $50,000. So whether there's any incentive there for the Chinese to manufacture in Canada, I guess we'll see. It's a work in progress. So, but jobs have to be a priority for sure.
It does, because it's not just the Chinese EVs. The province of Ontario and the federal government gave Algoma Steel $500 million. Like a week later, they laid off 1,000 workers. So who benefited from that half
it's like the money given to the auto industry and the jobs that went south of the border. So it's, yeah, clearly somebody's asleep at the switch here or never really knew what the switch was.
And I think it's the second point, and I agree with you on that, because they talk to the CEOs, they talk to the executives, but they don't have their conversations with the right people. And they should be going to the workers on the shop floor. They should be talking to the unions that represent those workers, because they're the ones that actually know how to make the industry better. It's not the CEO who's getting paid 300 times what the person working on the shop floor is. It's the people actually doing the job. Like, I went to a quick real story here. Sorry, Peggy. I was in Brantford, and Chris Holland, who's the president of the Steelworkers local there, says to me, he goes, "Hey, you ever think of where egg curtains are made?" And I was like, "I don't got a clue. Never even thought about it." I went to the factory. Amazing place in Brantford. They make millions of the things, and it is so cool. And so they buy the paper. When it first opened up, so this is how the story was explained to me. When it first opened up, they had about 100 employees, and throughout time, that through adding like some levels of automation and some level of robotics and stuff like that, throughout their history, and I said, "Oh, that must have cut the workforce, because that's what I'm used to." And the president of the local, Chris, and the past president, Don Guest, they were on the tour with me with the president of the company, and they said, "No, actually, they've done it in such a way that it's actually increased the number of workers." Right. So there's a way that we can work with corporations to move this automation, artificial intelligence into work sites that actually help grow the workforce and not decrease it. I might have went off a little track on my own little track there.
No, that's fine. You know, I think it speaks to the importance also of the Egg Marketing Board and supply management, which of course is another issue that's wrapped up in the current trade negotiations.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Including our dairy industry.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, I want to ask you, you are running overtly as a working class leader, and throughout the history of the NDP, and my history is not perfect, but there haven't been a lot of labor leaders or working class people who have headed up the NDP. So is there anyone that, when you look to history, any leader of the NDP that you would like to try to emulate? And if there is someone, or even if there isn't, what would it mean for workers to have a working class person heading up the NDP today? Well,
Peggy, you'll know this better than I do, how hard it is to get people to sign up and to get people excited about a leadership race at times, because it's a tough thing, right? You've been through it. I'm going through it. So I have two leaders that come to mind right away with the end, that were leaders of the Labour Party, or what should be the Labour Party. Jack Layton, number one, because he's Jack. He taught us that hope and love can actually grow us. And then, third one just popped into my head. Then we have Nicole, who was the first sister to be leader of the official opposition, who came from the labor movement.
And Nicole Trammell from PSAC.
That's right. That's right. And then J.S. Woodsworth, the first leader of the CCF, he came from the labor movement. He was a longshoreman in Vancouver, believe it or not, in 1918.
Coincidentally.
And so I just wish this was 2018. I'd be like, yeah, 100, let's get another longshoreman in there. But those are the three leaders that have caught my eye and inspired.
And so what would it mean now to have a working class leader? What are we missing that you could offer? You talked about talking more with working people, but what would it mean in terms of policy for the country? What would it mean in the House of Commons? What would it mean for building the party?
To have a worker leading the Workers' Party is, right now in today's world, would be an incredible thing, because we have a conservative party where that Pierre Poilievre walks around saying he's a worker, which is like, I don't think he's ever taken a price tag off his work boots if he even owns them, right? But to put, like, somebody like me, obviously, I'm the working class candidate here, because I've lived everything that workers in this country have lived. People have lost faith in politics because they see people coming out in shiny suits and they say all the right words and they're completely polished. I think everybody that's met me knows that's not me, right? Because I tell it like it is. Because I've had a hard time in my life stretching a paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. I know what people go through. I've negotiated scores of collective agreements for my rank and file. I've walked picket lines with people. There's been times where I've had to, unfortunately, wash blood off the deck of a ship and off the docks before. Because I've been there. And what we're seeing in our campaign is we're seeing at every location that we go to, people coming up to us, coming up to me and campaign people, saying that they voted Conservative. But after hearing me speak, they sign up to the party. Because we know the politics that'll help people. I'm not running to be a politician, Peggy. What I'm running to be is a workers' politician. Somebody that will stand up and say, and hey, what the hell are you doing? You're killing us. You're starving us. But nobody will do that. And I'm unapologetically proud that I'll do that, whether it's in the House of Commons or standing on a street corner. Defending people, helping lift people up. That's what I've done my whole life.
Now, Rob, does that translate right across the country? As you know, you're in the middle of this campaign, and it's a hell of a big country. Very, very diverse. It really is quite amazing. It's such a privilege to be able to see across the country the how vast it is and how different things are in different provinces. Are you saying that people are kind of in one way the same all over? I'm just trying to understand it better, because I think of Quebec, for example,
Yep.
where you mentioned Jack Layton. Certainly Jack Layton believed that the path to success for the NDP was through Quebec, and he spent years and years building support in Quebec and getting people to have that comfort level with him. And obviously it worked, because in the 2011 election, there were more Quebecers elected or more people elected in Quebec than any other part of the party. But tell me about what your approach would be, because you're one of the people who doesn't speak French. How would you connect with Quebecers, or how are you connecting with Quebecers to build the party?
So in my job as president of ILWU Canada, I've worked with longshoremen in Montreal for a decade plus. And we've always been able to have one common thing that binds us. And that's, we're all working class people. We're all fighting the ruling class to make working class people's lives better. And that's the tie that binds us all together, because it doesn't matter where I go. I've been to Gatineau, Montreal, all through Ontario, Halifax, BC, Alberta, and it's jobs, affordability, our healthcare system, and housing. That's what everybody talks about. Right? And so I learned things by being immersed. And so when this leadership race is done and I'm announced the winner on March 29th, my plan is I'll be going to Quebec for quite a while and living with Francophone families and doing my stuff there. And even though I don't know how to speak a lot of French, or it's tough, but you have to learn a little bit about the places that you go. And so, for example, in Quebec, we talk about the quiet revolution in Quebec, where Francophones took their power back in the 60s, if I remember correctly. They took their power back from people, from the ruling class. And one thing that hit me like a punch to the jaw, Peggy, because they're like, do you know why we value our language? One of the reasons why we value our language so much. And I was like, tell me, please, I want to know. They say, because English was the language of the ruling class in Quebec.
Yeah, they were the employers. Yeah.
And French was the language of the working class. And so that hit me like, it was like Mike Tyson hit me right in the jaw. And I went, holy shit. I got you.
I get it now.
Yeah. And so like when we talk about jobs in Quebec, like there's an aluminum smelter in Quebec that makes the cans that you put the food in, but they get sent to the States to put the wax in them. And then they come back or something. And so it's mind blowing why we don't do everything there in Quebec. We could have 2 plants or expand the one factory and keep those jobs there, because that's what people want. They want jobs, they want housing, they want a healthcare system that works. But after decades and decades of conservative and liberal governments trying to destroy our system, this is what they want. And we can get that, especially with MPs like Alexander Boulris, who's been doing amazing things in Quebec. And
yeah, he has a lot of respect. He's the only one who still has his seat there for the NDP, so he must be doing something right.
Well, we're going to grow it. We will.
That's great. Now, an issue that has come up during the course of the leadership campaign has been the relationship with provincial parties. And it's worth noting that while the NDP has never formed government federally and only once formed official opposition, that the NDP has been successful a number of times in winning provincial elections. And right now we have 2 NDP premiers, and in my province in Ontario, the NDP is the official opposition. And I'd like to understand how you see the role of the leader of the federal party differently than the role of leader in provincial parties. And why do you think it is we're able to win provincially, but we haven't quite got there yet? I say yet, federally.
I'm going to go back to my union roots for a sec to explain this. So my union, I have 12 locals, completely autonomous from each other and autonomous from ILWU Canada, and I'm the president of ILWU Canada. So if there's a local that I might think is doing something wrong, I'm not going to blab it all over the place. I'm going to pick up the phone, call the president. We're going to have a conversation about it. Or maybe I have to go sit in front of his executive board and we can trade ideas back and forth so we can understand each other. Come to a common ground. And that common ground might be, okay, we'll take a little bit of your idea, Rob, but this is what we're going to run. Or the common ground is, I just shut the hell up and go do my business. But never would I publicly assault an NDP, provincial arm of the NDP, or a territorial.
I mean verbally.
verbally assault. Yeah,
physically.
verbally assault, yeah. And so, and that's what we have to do. And so we either have to pick up the phone and have those conversations directly, privately, or we just have to not screw up their election bid. Because it doesn't matter if that NDP government's up in the Northwest Territories or in British Columbia or in Alberta or Halifax or wherever, it's still an NDP government. It's still better than what's out there. So what we have to build on is what's working in the provinces. So we have to identify how the provinces are talking to their members or to like Ontarians or British Columbians, and bring that to our game plan, because the federal NDP, we're not the all-knowing. We're not the Wizard of Oz. We're just people. And so we have to be humble enough that we can go in and say, hey, can you tell us what's working for you guys? So we can see if we can bring it back to the federal party and see if we can make it work here. Because the sharing of ideas, that's what's going to help us get elected. The trust that we have to build. The trust that we have to build with people within our party, with the leadership of the federal NDP. Because if we don't support each other, then we're just going to keep being the social conscience of the country. And so we have to support the provincial arms. We have to support the territorial arms, even if that means just zipping our lips and saying no comment every once in a while.
So I take it you believe that the role of the federal party should be to form government rather than just be the conscience. I'm not minimizing the conscience, but your goal is to win enough seats to form government. Am I correct in that?
Oh, most definitely. If you look at all the platforms of all the leadership candidates out there, like debating each other is tough because we all have the same ideas, the same good ideas, or a vast majority of them. But to get them into play and to get them working, we have to win government. Okay? Like, and I don't ever run for something just to be second place. And this is what we have to do.
You got a pretty good track record in your union, I guess.
Yeah, it's been good, right? I've been pretty lucky. I've been pretty fortunate that 50% plus one of the membership always liked what I've done. So we have to be able to be accepting of the fact that we have to grow, and we have to bring people home, voters home, back to the NDP. And we can't be scared of that, because we have to form government, because we have to break the cycle of the ruling class governments that do nothing but harm the working class. And so, yeah, when I win the leadership on March 29th, the first election, it'll be rebuilding. We're going to be getting used to each other. And then, yeah, you know what? If we're good, we're going to look at making a run at it in the next election. And we're going to make a run at it the next election. Because if we want our amazing policies and our amazing platforms to one day help lift Canadians up, then yeah, we're going to have to get serious about winning government. And nobody's snickering when you say it, right?
Yeah, I certainly don't snicker. That's a great note to end on, but I'm not going to end there. I have two more questions. One's just a quick one at the end, but my second last question, you have presented yourself well as a union leader, as a working class candidate, and your views on the leadership of the party. Just so people get to know you a bit better, what is one thing that people don't normally know about you or you haven't presented about yourself in the leadership campaign? Is there something that that just kind of gives people a more three-dimensional picture of who Rob Ashton is?
A lot of people think I'm angry all the time, but I'm not. I'm just really passionate. Like, how does somebody that's angry all the time play Santa Claus? Right? Like, come on.
So you play Santa?
I do. I play Santa quite a bit whenever I get an opportunity.
Hence the beard. Or did the beard come before Santa?
It's one of those chicken or the egg comments, right? Like, but one thing, like, I loved coaching when I was a kid, or not a kid, but when I was a young adult. I coached minor hockey. When I was in high school, I coached rugby, all the different grades in 8, 9, 10. I helped set up the first women's rugby team in my high school. And then when I got out of school, I kept coaching minor hockey. And then One of my sisters on the waterfront came up to me and asked me to coach her women's rec hockey league team. And so, yeah, sure, let's do this. And we had some good players, like a lot of heart, a lot of soul. And we actually made it to the finals, and none of us ever thought we could. I knew we could. We just had to point everything in the right direction. And we made the finals, and we didn't win, unfortunately. But to see them come together it was over 2 seasons. But to see them all come together, it was like absolutely fantastic. And then life got in the way, and I had to work more, and so I kind of drifted away from coaching. But that's something I've always missed.
That's a great skill, and I take it now you want to be the coach, or maybe it's the quarterback of the federal NDP, and coach them to a winning season, which is a great goal to have.
It is. We got a bunch of work to do. We got to bring more power to the EDAs and all that. Bring more power to the members, but we also have to bring an education program in for the New Democrats. And we have to, and that's what we did in our union a number of years back, probably over a decade ago, was we started bringing young workers in for a 3-day conference every 2 years, where they got educated about the union, about internal organizing, about politics. And then what we've seen from that is we've seen actually people that went to that course, they started taking leadership positions in their unions and taking leadership positions in their communities. So education is such a vital importance to this party. And that's what I'm going to be pushing for, is to educate not only people that have the same look as me, like gray hair and all that stuff, but also embrace the youth, because they're going to be the ones that we have to give the reins over to. And I'll stop talking after this one little thing here, is that a leader does not own the position that they get. A leader is there just to be a torchbearer. And that leader has to understand when it's time to pass that torch on to the next generation. And so if we don't teach the next generation about its history and about our values and how to organize internally and externally, then that leader has failed. And so I know when I become leader, I'm only there for a finite period of time. But when I hand that torch over to the next person, this party had better be in a better place.
Well, that sounds like a terrific goal and a place to pause. But before I let you go, people who are listening, they want to get in touch with you, they want to follow your campaign. How do they do that?
So if you want to send us a couple emails, it's info@robashton.ca. If you want to take a look at our website, it's robashton.ca. That's the weirdest thing, has everything named after you. That's kind of strange. But if you want to catch me on socials, it's Rob the Longshoreman. It's probably the easiest way to search me on Instagram and TikTok. And I can't believe I have a TikTok account. Facebook. And if you add me on your personal page, if I don't accept your ad, it's because I've hit that 5,000 person limit, which is mind-boggling. But yeah, so I'm not ignoring you.
Okay, on that note, Rob, thank you so much for taking time out of your campaign. Best of luck. I guess you're not quite in the home stretch yet, but you're more than halfway. So best of luck to you.
Thanks, Peggy. I really appreciate the time. Hey, take care.
That was Rob Ashton, trade unionist, longshoreman, and candidate running to be the next leader of the federal NDP.
Activists Make History is a special podcast series from Perspectives, a Canadian journal of political economy and social democracy, a publication and production of the Broadbent Institute. This show could not have been made possible without the generous contribution of Unifor, Canada's largest private sector union. If you'd like to hear more from Activists Make History, share and subscribe to Perspectives Journal on all major podcast platforms, as well as Press Progress's Sources podcast that digs deeper into the news stories you won't find in the major papers. The Perspectives Journal podcast and Sources are proud members of the Harbinger Media Network, Canada's progressive podcast community. Once again, I'm Peggy Nash, your host for Activists Make History and proud member of the Broadbent Institute's Board of Directors. You can read my latest book, Women United, Stories of Women's Struggles for Equality in the Canadian Auto Workers Union, from Between the Lines Books.